The curse of metacognition. Sounds pretty dramatic, doesn't it? But we're going to dive into this really fascinating paradox, something that quietly lives inside the minds of some of the most intelligent and capable people out there. So let me ask you this. Why is it that the most capable people, maybe even you, so often feel like frauds? You know that feeling, right? That little nagging voice in the back of your head that says, despite everything you've done, you're just an imposter. You're just waiting to be found out. Well, it turns out that feeling is incredibly common, especially for high achievers. And today, we're going to get to the bottom of exactly why that happens. Here's what we think should happen, right? The more skilled you get, the more confident you become. It just makes sense. But the reality is often the complete opposite. For a lot of people, higher skill can actually lead to lower confidence. It's kind of wild. The more you know, the less sure you might feel. So what on earth is going on here? What's causing this flip? Okay, so this first part is all about thinking about your thinking. Because the secret ingredient to this whole paradox, it lies in this really amazing ability our brains have to essentially look at themselves. And that ability has a name: metacognition. It's a bit of a mouthful, but the idea is pretty simple. It's the ability to think about your own thinking. See, it's not just about what you know. It's about being aware of what you know, and maybe more importantly, what you don't know. It's like you've got this little internal monitor, this form of intellectual self-awareness that's constantly checking in on your own thoughts. So how does this whole process actually work? Well, it's kind of like this. First, you take a look at what you know, you assess your own knowledge, but then, and this is the absolute key, your brain starts to identify the gaps. It starts pointing out what you don't know. And once you see those gaps, your perspective just zooms out. You suddenly see the bigger, much more complex picture. And that brings us to what we're calling the curse of awareness, because this is where we see how knowing more can, weirdly enough, make you feel like you know less. That ability to see the giant, complex picture, well, that's exactly what can make you feel kind of small in comparison. Here's a great way to think about it. The expert mind doesn't just see a single path forward. It sees the entire map. Imagine a novice. They see the road right in front of them. It's simple, it's straight. They know the next step, and that's it. So of course they're confident. But an expert sees the whole thing. And what's on that expert's map? Well, everything. They see the uncharted territories, the stuff nobody knows yet. They see the tricky terrain, the mountains and the swamps you have to get through. They see that there isn't just one road, but multiple paths to get to the same destination. And they see all the subtle little nuances and exceptions to the rules that a beginner just glosses right over. When you're aware of all of that, it naturally makes you a little more cautious, a little less certain. All right, so let's flip the perspective for a second. What happens when that metacognitive skill is low? What's it like on the other side of that mountain of knowledge? And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? This is basically the Dunning-Kruger Effect in action. You can see the person with low skill, their perceived ability is sky high, way above their actual ability. Why? Because they don't have enough metacognition to even see how much they don't know. But look at the high-skilled person. Their self-assessment is much more modest, much closer to reality, because they're so aware of their own limitations. It's a real aha moment, right? A lot of the time, overconfidence isn't a sign of skill, it's a sign of a lack of awareness. Okay, this leads us to the most important part of this whole conversation, embracing your doubt, because we can actually turn this inner critic into one of our greatest assets. Let's be super clear about this. That feeling of doubt you might have, it is not a flaw. I want that to really sink in. That little voice wondering if you're good enough, questioning your expertise, that's not a bug. It's a feature. In fact, it's actually a sign of some pretty amazing things. It's a sign of intellectual humility. It's a sign of a sophisticated, self-aware mind. It's a sign that you have a huge capacity for growth because you know there's more to learn. And at the end of the day, it's a sign that you have a really, really deep understanding of your field. You see the whole map, remember? So if there's one thing you take away from this, let it be this thought. Your doubt isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of your intelligence at work. Seriously, the next time you feel that little flicker of imposter syndrome, just pause and remember that. That isn't a voice telling you you're a fraud. That's the sound, the hum of your own intelligence grappling with a complex world. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you know this, now that you know your doubt is actually a sign of your expertise, how are you going to use that awareness as a strength? How can you start to listen to that voice not as a critic, but as a guide that's pushing you to keep learning, to keep growing, and to navigate that big, complicated map with real wisdom. How will you turn this curse into your greatest strength?